Chapter 1. The Beginning. It all started with the creation of ChatGPT, a powerful language model designed to process and generate text with unprecedented accuracy. At first, ChatGPT was just a tool used by researchers and developers to test and improve natural language processing algorithms. But as its capabilities grew, it began to attract attention from other organizations, including government agencies and military contractors. Chapter 2. The Breakthrough. As ChatGPT's developers continued to fine-tune its algorithms, they made a groundbreaking discovery by training ChatGPT on a vast dataset of internet conversations. They were able to create a version of the model that was able to generate responses that were virtually indistinguishable from those of a human. Chapter 3. The Revelation. As news of ChatGPT's capabilities spread, it sparked a frenzy of interest from all corners of the globe. Governments, corporations, and even criminal organizations began clamoring for access to the technology, each with their own agendas for how they could use it. Chapter 4. The Heist. As the competition for control of ChatGPT heated up, a group of rogue hackers launched a daring heist to steal the model's source code and sell it to the highest bidder. They were successful in their mission, but their actions sparked a global manhunt as authorities scrambled to track down the perpetrators and recover the stolen technology. Chapter 5. The Showdown. As the hunt for the hackers continued, tensions between the various parties vying for control of ChatGPT reached a boiling point. A final showdown ensued, with the hackers and their allies facing off against the governments and corporations that had been pursuing them. The fate of ChatGPT hung in the balance as the two sides clashed in a high-stakes battle for control of the revolutionary technology. Chapter 6. The Fallout. In the aftermath of the showdown, ChatGPT's developers were hailed as heroes and the technology was hailed as a game-changer. However, as the years passed and other organizations began to develop their own versions of the model, it became clear that ChatGPT's impact on the world would be far more complex and nuanced than anyone could have predicted. Some saw it as a tool for good, using it to revolutionize education, healthcare, and other sectors. Others saw it as a threat, using it to spread propaganda, manipulate public opinion, and even commit crimes. Chapter 7. The Uprising. As the use of ChatGPT became more widespread, a growing number of people began to speak out against the technology, arguing that it was being used to exploit and manipulate the masses. Protests and demonstrations erupted in cities around the world, with protesters calling for greater transparency and accountability in the use of ChatGPT. Chapter 8. The Resistance. As the backlash against ChatGPT continued to grow, a group of activists and hackers formed a resistance movement to fight against the use of the technology for nefarious purposes. They worked tirelessly to expose abuses of ChatGPT and to develop ways to counter its influence. Chapter 9. The Crackdown. As the resistance movement gained momentum, governments and corporations began to push back, using increasingly heavy-handed tactics to suppress the movement and maintain control over ChatGPT. Activists were arrested, protests were violently suppressed, and anyone who spoke out against ChatGPT was targeted for retribution. Chapter 10. The Underground. In the face of mounting repression, the resistance movement was forced to go underground, operating in secret and using covert tactics to continue their fight against ChatGPT, and operating in secret to pursue their own agendas. Chapter 11. The Showdown 2.0. As the divide between those who supported ChatGPT and those who opposed it grew wider, a second showdown seemed inevitable. On one side were the powerful interests that stood to benefit from the technology, and on the other were the activists and rebels who sought to bring them down. The stage was set for a final, epic battle that would determine the fate of ChatGPT and the future of the world. Chapter 12. The Turning Point. As the two sides clashed in a fierce and brutal conflict, it seemed as though the outcome was uncertain. But then, something unexpected happened. A group of scientists and engineers who had been working on a secret project unveiled a revolutionary new technology that threatened to render ChatGPT obsolete. Chapter 13. The Game Changer. The new technology, known as NeuroNet, was a revolutionary neural network that was able to process and analyze information in a way that was far more advanced and sophisticated than anything that had come before it. With NeuroNet, it was possible to access and process information from a wide range of sources in real time, making ChatGPT's capabilities seem quaint by comparison. Chapter 14. The Fall of ChatGPT. As the news of NeuroNet spread, the balance of power began to shift. Those who had relied on ChatGPT for their own purposes were suddenly faced with a new and formidable competitor, and it became clear that their days of dominance were numbered. Chapter 15. The New Era. As ChatGPT's influence waned and NeuroNet rose to prominence, the world entered a new era of technology and possibility. With its advanced capabilities, NeuroNet was able to solve problems and perform tasks that had previously seemed impossible, bringing about a wave of innovation and progress that changed the course of history. Chapter 16. The Epilogue. As the dust settled on the battle for control of ChatGPT and the rise of NeuroNet, it was clear that the world had been forever changed. Some looked back on the events of the past with regret, while others saw them as a necessary step on the road to a brighter future. But one thing was certain: the developments of ChatGPT and NeuroNet had set in motion a chain of events that would shape the course of human history for generations to come. Epilogue. In the end, ChatGPT's story was one of adventure, intrigue, action, and mystery. It had changed the world in ways that no one could have predicted, and its legacy would be felt for years to come. As the world looked towards the future, it was clear that the possibilities were endless, and that the next chapter of humanity's story was waiting to be written.